My life sucks on paper. Here are a few things that I've got going on right now. So today the water pump broke, so no showers, no laundry, no bathroom. My gas tank is empty. My family is getting kicked out of their house. Their internet is off. I have no money for food. My gym membership is overdue, and I don't even have the gas to make it to the gym, and I don't have money for gas. The brakes on my dad's truck are broken. My phone is off because I haven't paid my phone bill, so I can't call or text. I spilled water on my keyboard today, and I am $50,000 in debt. And guess how that makes me feel? I feel nothing. I feel nothing because I am free. I made the decision just the other day that I would dedicate my time, my energy, my life to surrender. And I think this is something that we just need to remind ourselves of, that, at least for me, everything has already been taken care of. I already understand very clearly that all my desires are already on their way, because our reality is experienced in our mind. The outer world is nothing but a reflection. It would be easy for me to focus on all the things in my life that are going wrong. But what would that do? What would that accomplish? It would accomplish nothing but to reinforce the reality that I don't want to live. So it doesn't make any sense to focus my attention on these things. It does make sense, however, to assume that everything has already been taken care of, that the life I desire is already on its way, because by focusing on the reality that I want, the outer reality shapes to conform to my desire. I recognize my God power within, the power of creation, and I refuse to use it unwisely. And if you are going through a hard time and can't help but let the fear in, it's not your fault. You have been conditioned by the world to naturally respond negatively to negative situations. In fact, the more logical you are, the more negative you are likely to react. Because for someone to look at me and say that I have no fear and I have no worry, and I focus on a reality that has yet to come into fruition, they would call me insane. They would call me living in a fantasy. How about you focus on reality? These are the facts of reality, and you have to deal with them, and you're running away from the facts. And I say to those people, you know nothing about what is real. It's not always about the truth. It's about what you choose to focus on. Because this universe is perfectly balanced. There is negative and positive in everything. I am in no way a realist. Well, maybe sometimes. I am an eternal optimist. I believe always that everything is always working out in my highest interest. Not because I am deluding myself, but because I see clearly. But when we are living in unconsciousness, when we are in illusion, we cannot see this. We only recognize our own suffering and the suffering of those in the world. But think about it practically for a second, even realistically. What does being afraid add to an already negative situation? What does worry contribute to something that is difficult? There is absolutely nothing that you can do but make the situation worse by ruminating on it, by thinking about it, by allowing the fear and worry in, by beating yourself up over it. Absolutely nothing but adding to the burden that is already so heavy. So it doesn't make any sense. The logical ones say, focus on the facts. But if the facts of your reality are negative, then by focusing on what is negative, you do nothing but reinforce a negative reality. The only option that you have is to use that pain and suffering and fear to motivate you to change. And that is how most people live their lives. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a lower level of consciousness way of being. This is how animals live their life. They use suffering to motivate them. They use pain to run away from and pleasure to move toward. But since most of us are operating from animalistic consciousness, that is our ego, then this is our only tool that we have. We don't realize that there is another way, that there is a higher way of being, and we don't have to live and slave away and suffer like we do. At a certain point along your journey, suffering seems to be less and less of a motivator. And this actually can create a bit of problems, for instance, with my life. When suffering is no longer a motivator for you, you can almost allow suffering to stay a bit longer than it's welcome. Because suffering no longer really affects you. The pain has been neutralized. You have this power, as do we all. And so me feeling at peace most of the time, living every day in joy and in contentment, it's not possible to have the same kind of motivation as somebody who is living in the world of pain and pleasure. For me, motivation lately has been much more of a logical thing, so I have to look at my life situation and say, okay, this needs to change. I want this to be this way. I prefer things to be this way. And you do have to have a level of, okay, my life is currently unacceptable. I am content fully and completely, at least most of the time. I can't say what I'm going to feel like tomorrow, but within, I am all good. But I still see clearly that the things in my reality need to change. So it's a kind of a battle between accepting the present moment and surrendering, but then also striving to make things better. But it's not even a striving, because the more you surrender, the more you put your trust in God, in the divine intelligence of the universe, in life, you come to realize that life is already doing all of the heavy lifting. It's like this divine intelligence that has already created and has been evolving the entire cosmos, 2 trillion galaxies, with trillions and trillions of suns and planets, so large beyond our comprehension. This has already been created without any help from you or me. And yet we come here with our egos and our minds and say, I gotta get my stuff together. But in fact, everybody does nothing but take credit for God's work. This life is living you, and the only thing that we have to do is get out of the way. That is why through developing your awareness, you realize that surrender is the only option. Because the more you surrender, the less resistance to life you are. And the more you can allow the life to flow freely through you, the more it can do its job. This is the source of all problems and suffering in people's life, is that they restrict themselves, they restrict the life, and they cut themselves off from the blessings, because they are too heavily attached to their mind and body identity. And so they allow the fear in, they allow the worry in, they allow the darkness in, and where there is darkness, there cannot also be light. You have to make a choice. What side are you on? The dark side or the light side? And the scary thing is that most people are hypocrites. They say they're on the side of what is good, and yet they spend their time and attention giving it to things that do not serve them. And it's not their fault. It's just we live in unconsciousness. We lack awareness. We are in ignorance. And so don't blame yourself for the problems in your life or the things that are going on that you don't want to experience. I can feel zero fear or zero worry and still take 100% responsibility, not over my life circumstances. I take responsibility for my own energy. I pay attention to where I allow it to go. And to be honest, you can even just bypass all of that and go all the way and say, well, it doesn't make any sense to focus on anything other than God. I mean, God is the only thing that is. But why would you focus on anything lesser? Focus on the highest, and the highest manifests in your life. You see, if you really want to live your best life and fix the problems that are currently plaguing you, you have to cut out all of the nonsense. You have to cut out all of the distractions, all of the things that are taking your attention away from that which is good. It's like how people think about demons and devils and evil and scary things. It's like every moment you take focusing on what is evil, you take that moment away from focusing on that which is good. So you claim to be on the side of the good guys, but you're fueling the evil by giving it your energy. You see, people think that they can fight the darkness, and that is illusion. The only way to defeat and overcome the darkness is by looking toward the light. Everything else is a waste of time. Do nothing else in this life but find freedom for your own self. Because once you are free, then everything else will take care of itself. But if you try and tackle everything else, and you are not free, then you will bring suffering to every situation, to every person, even on the subtlest level. It's not your fault, it's just the way it is. If we are living in darkness, we cannot help but spread darkness. And this journey for me has certainly been quite the difficult one, because the mind will do whatever it takes to refuse giving up control. Surrender and the mind do not mix. In fact, it is quite the opposite. The mind wants power and control. And so as you embark on the journey to freedom, it will continue to try and grab a hold of you, get you to come back to the illusion, to bring you back into suffering and unconsciousness. And what happens is that you kind of just experience more and more suffering until you just give up. So you say, oh, okay, I've had enough of all of this. And I see why most people do not awaken in this life. Why they say it takes thousands of lifetimes to become enlightened. Because for me, what it took to become free was absolute desperation, where there was absolutely no desire whatsoever but for freedom. But people in all their interactions in daily life, they judge and they think about the past and the future, and they're always reaffirming their sense of self-identity. They're completely a slave to the mind, and they do not realize it. I'll give you an example. My landlord, for instance, she loves the drama and the chaos. She loves creating problems. But it is not her. It is like there is a parasite in the back of her mind that is using this sense of self-identity to fuel the mind. People are plagued by this great parasite that is the ego. It's like it is there all the time, planting seeds, reinforcing this identity that we believe we are, that we have attached our identity to. And what you find with people who are highly attached to their identity, anytime any kind of information comes to them that could expose this ego parasite, they immediately get sent into an emotional trigger to take their resources away from their thinking mind and shove it into their emotional body so that they cannot think and become aware of what is happening. This is the key to freedom. You go out through your daily life and you become aware of the triggers. You see, why did I get angry during this situation? Why did I get irritated? Why did what this person did affect me so heavily? And this reveals an attachment about ourselves. And it is only when we stop feeding this parasite does it begin to die. This is all that I have done, and you can do the same, in that you recognize that the mind is causing you suffering by feeding off your energy. It is not that the mind is evil, it is that we are a slave to it. The mind is a great slave, but a terrible master. So I still use my mind, I still think, everything is still normal, except for I am free from the attachments and the identification with the body and the mind. And so I am not identified with the person who is in the negative life situation, and so I am free from it. I have done nothing but practice being in the state of awareness, in presence, that is in the state of consciousness that is transcendent above the physical world and the experiences that we have. Remember that you have all the power, and all of these things, all of these life situations, all of our thoughts use our power and steal it. And so we become weaker and they become stronger, and so all of these things have power over us. The moment you take your power back and begin reserving it and begin refusing to giving it to things that do not serve you, that is when you become free. Becoming free is the only thing that matters in this life, and everything else will take care of itself.